Rolling this year, thumbs every decide workout. Notice the concept of the concept of the landscape on test 70 proposed rule codified creative definition of the today. I like the bottom of the stimulation you're doing for this we're getting potential writers today. The second for EPA, whether the next for the purpose of determining what is the normal term of the examiner of the system and apply the precedent decision for the we're making effort for minimal face option regarding the city of the pre-2015 rule was exhaustive litigation that gutted enforcement of protection of wetlands and farmer streams. A new rule would increase business certainty, save costs and solve delays. Never DBS, which the cases of the time, cost of agency time and money. There's no delay increase for sure. The rule of predetermination, but delay cost of the state of business. More important, the economy, the economic military, the waters are protected. The brink is now delays, devastate wetlands, Dakota biodiversity, and cause actual closure. Number 19. Loss of production, water content, including pollution, flooding, also putting agents of water, cascading cumulative effect, and severe acids, the kind of water, that is water, and pollution, agriculture, other systems can be polluted, no water, water, strictly, then you delay, not only protected definition comes with risk. Protecting wetlands is key to solve and adapt to warming because they're an effective largest carbon sequester work. Not only well as the most protected carbon sequester, the reaction with the natural, the most protective ecosystem. Have the highest soil density vital in response primary services at all. Okay, 638. Recommended protection wetlands, safety wetlands against human disturbance and wetland continue to stored in the atmosphere, stored 50 more CUS, wetlands reserve high sea stock, wetland cause high sea loss, unchecked warming cause extinction period, 21 climate event, habitat concentration of the sea once increasing extreme events immediately deep catastrophe occur, occurring on simultaneous cross the emerging of the climate can trigger societal climate rapidly capacity to develop, fertility above air shock, the complex and driven as the oil likely fair, the few cascade in the global collapse and if you're forcing to term, a global system best for expanding what is solves. Hey, the 19 MPS solution the version of profit is going to be water, not around the investment in act, including water, just need to produce and all the rolling out the sea to those practices protecting its model globally first of all, and 20 people is a little development of a little hybridization, holding and expertise of globalization is Latin American bodies in Africa, the local initiatives engaged in instruments, EPA partnership, illustrating governmentalism, EPA committed in national respect. Thus, the plan, the United States Federal should reinstate the clean water definition of waters of the United States on the ground. The agencies fail to consider relevant scientific evidence when adopting the repeal rule. Advantage to is the APA. The new ruling is explicitly avoiding questions around it. Rebel, courts really consider it already being completed court evaluation for some of them. But economy will go on the APA. The repeal rule violates the APA demand. Judicial reinstatement of the clean water rule tells me. And then 20 people are because of your country decides that you failed to consider effects on the coast. There should be protection for the water system. No violation of the APA violates the APA and spills over to other statutes. It's allowed to stand Kaiser. And then when a conflict committee, you organize the analysis of the economic analysis. No one from the administration likely to find the court of the argument in GPMA. Never consider the federal environmental association economic violation evidence. The benefit cost analysis EPA no percent. The federal rulemaking, the EPA's APA violation sets a precedent that undermines scientific and predictable rulemaking broadly, independently collapses democracy. Somebody. Laws make democracy erosion, never going to be the concept of agents animating democracy requires agencies engaging business to make these states to change to grow. Requires they be really structured concept like agreed by the professionalized inflation rate for law, automatic consultation for rulemaking. The politicization of science and agency rulemaking and policy spills over the science broadly and undermines democratic governance. In 18, scientists' role is one of politicization of science on a basis. Literally, policy comes to the agency comes to the the should be fully for the scientists have to work in public companies work. There was a nice funny demolition. It was very possible in order to the administration say for the service safeguard reasons to do agency or the science actually is something versus some other financial system as democratic backsliding in the US bills over government and 21. Global democratic recession more the third way to the market back from country depending on what state. The truth of US come from the democratic movement, the field of democracy will become the political will constitute democratic order. As for the London we people danger democracy constant backslide of the champion and democracy solves extinction 20. The 20 the best antidote to great public terrorism mass migration and democratic institution to much people also can extreme first. The dictatorship the democracy behind each other extremism and public democracy are better than terrorism as well as something trade with society. Link between the policy of solving because of the change science-based agency expertise is key to regulate emerging tech morale. The 19 we have to consider the consequences of exponential public unity of every quality. Then further survival and decision making spending control the technology able to generate major without like the new rise and transition by the human species that very lost its expertise governmental agency weaken the president's action one not the control the eviction is a high rate of expertise Ethical regulation, innovation, development, scientific knowledge, governance, social disease, geoengineering, and AI, lacking regulations, ensures existential threat, exit. 14, tag and person risk of the 5 of 3 of 11, 14, 90, disease, ability, climate, negative, society, regulatory, faculty, diminish, extinction, greater than 1 in 10,000, be survived with the right company, take the next step, new tech post, greater risk of hygiene, overcome, limits on traceability, and capacity, extra, there's the plan for existential, risk and cause, the problems, and that outweighs and circumvents their defense. 21, accidental risk from losing control of biotech, nanotech, AI, could possess general utility, expert frequently, augment to be even eliminate the species pursuits and non-goal, the default uncertainty wrecks the pharma industry home and below. Quebec already considered electronic advisor based on the consensus just for risk and expensive only difference between creating a vision cycle that can the public list innovation high levels of major disinvested creating medicine early for the company predict with the trust north risk but high risk innovation more trouble than we know in preservation. We're not reading the intro. I need the card, the BCA card from the Sparks F you moron. Pharma innovation or key to solve disease, bioterror, and ABR investment instead of key market. And find out 20 key active pharmaceutical company. The vaccine that are the company undispensable the social system of innovation for that. Include disease, bioterror, need for innovation. U.S. innovation is key to global access to modern Congo. For American leadership on the policy instead of global, the policy delivery to everyone is not rather effective protection. Network across the century and challenges and the biopharmaceutical innovation to the world and disease cause extinction. Future diseases will be worse and preparedness solves the modest. And 14, the COVID taught us about the danger extensions and lethal disease most of the plenty of much more the future time human billions of viruses disease result in extinction from measures will reverse or delay outcomes and vulnerabilities and preparedness were because of a lack of investment. But the plan would reverse that. I mean, I'm upon you 20 hope the virus system development entry no to be the voter versus this right race vaccine preparedness never have priority. Politicization and anti-science decision, direct regulatory certainty, and judicial reference of Garland, and someone to be seen, but I can't live without immersion in context there. This sense of permanent and your relation to water, and relation, come with the cost regulation, or for investment, your relation, how make investment, get the cost benefit, providing regulation, setting location, justify future duty, or wishes to get out of the ages corporate, nifty dicks, and the plan creates a default science presumption in judicial review that checks motivator reason roster, and then 19 awards that scientific motivator receive, nature expression, and reasonable substitution of my content, and the scientific difficult, environmental, response, entity, more defense, never show up on the versus see but not consider scientific knowledge actually works on the scientific knowledge of water and difference and all stages of political system making that the book doctor for political is falling, the expert judgment science gives your perception, but check motivator reason. The alignment of judicial review with science-based cost-benefit assessment creates a balance mechanism that creates regulatory certainty. And then 19 in the review will what is the review gets the treatment cost benefit that should be just like regular policy user review. The physical consideration regulation kind of analysis that combines science policy with more difficult to be considered by some conclusion modern judicial interpretation policy. Spreading my CV, embracing power of review. I thought I had 15. Okay, CBA racing partnership review differential agents 100% precision, whether it's the active community device security, then it's the GBA considering issue data, the balance of stability control, most facts, not a grant change speed out to change responsibility, AP receive a lot, and the second good speed out to actually it's a policy or not, these sticky one well using policy should be.
Are those internal links sent out?
It's actually sent them.
Okay, well we heard process.
I didn't start it, stop it when you started talking.
Okay. I felt like death, so I thought it was better to get a lot of
Should I think that the document next to Diane Bandis, but not next to the person's name whose name is actually done?
Well, we weren't reading this one like that, and I went crazy.
Are you good?
Yeah.
First question, the best set of evidence cites geoengineering, AI, and disease as quote existential risks. Can you pull a line from this card that says geoengineering is an existential risk?
It says that it would flip the climate and it would make temperatures.
Like a line that says it runs extinction.
Well, it says all of them are existential threats.
No, it doesn't. It's tagged in that way, but there's not an extinction word for geoengineering.
I disagree. Well, it sort of concludes after listing biotech treats bioweapons more dangerous. Geoengineering gives the ability to alter the climate, and then concludes that all of those are greater existential risks than anything else. So I think
I watched it on the last part, but that's fine. Let's walk through the interlinks to this democracy stuff. First, the best evidence is from an environmental lawyer for an environmental defense fund. wording hyperbolically, where do you think this evidence actually says that the APA implicates U.S. democratic?
Well, it isolates that predictable rulemaking, and agencies being able to be regulated by the APA are something that are foundational to our democracy because that's how laws are made. If it is true that agencies can have ipsy dick, then that obviously is authoritarian without any checks on it, which is what FEST is about. The Lynn card sort of supports that and says that if we do not use science or influences, then the sort of core tenets and norms of democracy.
That makes sense. The Lynn evidence, let's talk about that. The title of the article is, quote, Trump's war on regulatory science. It lists a ton of stuff he did in the underlying portion. Biden, why doesn't he solve that?
Why does Biden solve that?
Why doesn't he solve those things /your Interlink?
Well, because it's a question of agencies and like whether that science is used, but it's also a question of administrations. Our argument is that regulations are in flux, and so if that is true, inconsistency in science not used will always change depending on the administration. So a balanced CBA.
Okay, so the time frame for this impact is 4 years from now when Biden gets lifted out of office.
Wait, disagree. And if you make an argument that Biden is good for science, we'll read cards that say Biden is not.
Okay, feels intuitive. The first advantage, obviously India and China, big emitters. What evidence, or where do you think this Percival modeling evidence says that the app gets modeled by India and China?
You are correct that it does not quote say India and China will, but it does say that the EPA's credibility, it influences big decisions around the globe. They have programs in places such as Latin America, the Middle East, and gives a litany of examples that say that those countries cooperate and look towards the U.S.
Do you have any evidence that leaders in India or China would adopt the plan? Because that's what people care about.
Well, I also think we have sufficient evidence. We don't have to stop emissions. We have said that negative emissions is good. Things like wetlands soak up carbon. U.S. wetlands are probably sufficient. Global wetlands
Okay.
is all.
This is probably a silly question. How much can wetlands absorb?
I think the WER card says they have a higher sea. I don't actually know the number, but it says they have a higher sea capacity than artificial wetlands. And they U.S. wetlands have a different type of soil, so they hold more. I don't really know the science.
Okay, do you have any evidence that says that those wetlands can handle global emissions?
WER says that the best way to target things like emissions is through U.S. wetlands.
Okay, sure.
Okay, let's do wetlands. Give me a second to get set up on
Okay, it sticks off the water advantage and then the APA advantage. Both of you all got it. Both of y'all got it?
Got it. Mine's open. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay, do both of you have it? All right, is anybody not good?
John, that's loading. Give me 2 more seconds.
Sorry, I couldn't.
Okay, yeah, I'm good now.
Okay.
First off, the king of calls for that resource increase was the levels like creating new market innovation, well, the fund of hard capital rush occur 70% of the cost of increasing the legal application, like control, wholesale commodities, like very right, the engine of the local voice, outlash, sponsorship, sense of masquerade, tourism, top dimension solutions are, also providing leadership, the contribution to as being expanded, deal with construction, that they the amount of people sort of options of those sources by city capitals, and then countries getting government by representing the ways of energy calculation, models, to technology, research, to protect you, looking for South economies, European capitals, well, as sustainable blocks of land here, extinction, foster, dynasty, climate, changes, litigation, 16 generation, phosphorus, loss of water, forest, and pollution, recommended growing budget work in 16 years, others be a Russell corporate to make them come down to short career city campus country with wealth, but the future meeting campus was given to this new expedition in. Over pitching out the campus says it does, it depends on the market on the concerts with the future today, and rest of the economics, such war, which is resource waste alive, or future business campus offers in. The group these for budget social model life. The alternatives to agenda plan favor commitment to organizing anti campus and structure revolution statement. 21 rebels to represent the leaders campus here with campus negotiation potentially robbing boss on 2 SCs on the village and unless rebels spending will be crushed, rush to control the campus addition, your rules spending across borders work share. Experience the addition last house and agriculture, global division, global culture, gather people identify with the causes. Triggers may be different, but all responsibility for one expedition war by Master 2011, two shooters, five versus cause the air was reduced in this red. Two inspire occupied 80 countries, and social movements working class versus working action, Russia action, is possible to reduce workers, easy power, create shock response, the Bolsheviks, organized labor, world, establish compensation, national clarify, strategy, building capitalist workers, being close revolutions. They seem like conversion of hygiene, defense, gas, work, resource, pollution, history, the president's crisis, and gender, international remote resistance, the most important news, or site, organized the first day. Next up is T production means conveying safety abuse, managing, and consequences of use of Bruce, interpretation, conveying safety abuse, violation of the plan design, limit use of water, growing, close ground, how waste process, very infinite. Ways to affect the waterfront, rescue with earthquakes, lots of and non-point source pollution, massive small tweaks, regulation, everything, and that's happening on. Limit mechanisms, next up is confidence, business, or confidentiality. No, 22, two-thirds CEOs, central advising hundreds of companies representing 50 industries, regulating, optimistic, and seeing strong growth over the next year. Protection crashes, business confidence, market. 19, business reaction, got faster short-term increase over the lower company's debt. This how companies balance for due to use spending costs for prevent investments and even reasonable returns. Firms are questioning polarization and certainty about regulation, jobs, companies lower investing and employment, weak economies, also recession in America. Economic growth against U.S. Russia war, baby cruise, emerging tech, and bolsters international cooperation, growth 16. Multiple emphasis was on the strong U.S. China may never deliver not having a country in the countries U.S. against solution very legitimate present for that. Party lower growth, make harder liberalization efforts permanently for the world that will not have the licenses powerhouse. And there was a big contest of issues besides U.S. and China and Russia could be Cold War wars, not net emerging technology from the life like the wolf and could be dangerous. There was no governance without U.S. leadership, geoengineering, Jones, instead of our managed technology and most risk catastrophes. Next up is the advanced category. The United States federal government should establish a program to come 4.8% support 4.8% of the surface of your oceans in a monolithic one view damage the latest particles bearing conventional stabilization system that's inactivating saltwater established. A code of conduct to share information regarding geoengineering internationally, increases economic and military support for democratic coalitions, alliances, and global democracy promotion efforts expand, and promote intellectual property protection and fair global market access for American pharmaceutical innovation, substantially invest in development smart cities and urge global access among allies, substantially fund initiatives for domestic programs including testing, contact tracing, isolation, and clear risk mitigation, engagement, multiple forms for response, and then prevention stalls forming more than 11 latest focus on job asking from very small part to 42% increase in by 25% increase of venture capital 0.031, 4.8% of one later costs is currency forcing the figure cost 20 billion, the 2 billion significant cheaper doesn't require on engineering installs, mitigation 1 DC Conca, New 21 effective IP protection reinforced their essential commitment to fair access market work, innovation including biopharmaceuticals, addressing discriminatory trade usage, dimension drawing risk with delay, solves disease, normal and 20 the task forces and findings that focus on WHO one's platform as well, drawing lessons where the country's U.S. efforts field to invest in prevention detection response covered labor affairs and initiatives left funding obligation not been met early action investing that matter than testing, contribution, isolation clear, risk communication stalls, democracy, 1 is 2021 democracy's act to uphold order to democratic coalition defense alliance support for free, and fair elections, political party, civil society, independent media, and the rule of law. Next up is the core politics, justice, inequity, Barrett to recuse and Dawes v. Jackson from self-organization. Barrett's oath of office requires that Shirley 21, New Dawes versus recuse herself for only after the recuse issues and she is violating her oath of office. The court will decline to overturn abortion precedent now. Robinson 21 the courts. Just 11 Robertson and Senator refusing this for release to shake court carrying court's credibility of Barrett tries to monitor reverse law shifts to justice and victories of liberals. Robertson's institutions wants to conserve confidence and fears and criminal shifts being now and have an affair in the court. Like reading keys the big test and extra concerning abortion, the ACA and LGBT wings work procedure what doing that. Law in the middle was very conservative follow the case along with the agreement of alternative suggests majority of the time become major things to be one shot war for certain capital is important because capital is confidence support developed through the most conservative and justice hesitant to overturn cases these will create pressure for abortion. The plain judicial activism makes a court look partisan but Saracens out. 21 Orthodox is inherently difficult to the conversation of the court to increasingly competent to discourage by partisan because judicial appointments become increasing skeptical advocacy of protection of the law struggles making up the lawmaking controversial U.S. Reproductive rights is followed global GFW 17 media. Proving U.S. policy influence decision globally and can block access to reproductive rights. The U.S. critical movements also over the world movements for enforcing the rights of non-black movements becoming global inflation. The president women's leaders are taking a reproduction women around the world to fixing rights and success about how the U.S. administration policy in the U.S. is example of communicating the key issues of U.S. policy including access to health care and scholar the world U.S. is really well and moving the or specifically go back expanded. Reproductive freedom solves extinction angle and a lot of scientific activities to the increase emissions or pushing humanity and visibility to do with that and about how to require zero growth of oil. You to aid the lower emissions saving population peak policies aimed at reproductive freedom. If all pregnancies result in intent population related to the climate negative of women access means to choose a pregnancy intervals like crashing together to get those. Slow growth is growth controls measure total U.S. limited. Next up is the states handling the 50 states in all relevant territory should green state clean water rule definition of water to the United States and mainly consideration of relevant scientific evidence and promulgating regulations state stall about and beyond 19. The EPA further will not consider groundwater pollutants reaching what is involved in the CWA and CPA states above California's act and EPA unless you women's CPA but California has that official that will maintain status quo and cover. More happy that California state regards to relevant counterplans what is the decision Supreme Court decision U.S. state regulation effect for country taking around 12 months. The water bench. Wetlands sequester not increase in 20 carbon storage and marshes mangroves and seagrass make a small contribution to climate solution sea level rise or more. And then worse we increase in a faster rate level giant cost of carbon renewal rates of India and China offset emissions to on drawback 21 China. And India with growing appetite for energy plants that was after emissions the two have massive population China using more than half of the world's coal and expect to rise 40% both argue. Their institutional responsibilities in developed economies not consultation care at all. 19 likely good services likely worst case scenario and the most unlikely long term scenario where feedback more severe than those likely, but obviously this is a response to pass and moderate estimating the conclusion likely civilization is false, not scientists right exaggerate. Sound findings possibly going to
2050s long time process no ground science they always there. On board, there was no basis as a concrete to one human distinction protection between events or difficult and very between models. Headline claims suffer knock-on effects of non-capacity model from science competitor. Like this rules speculative radical collision from murderous evidence. The advantage is not inherent. The federal judges already decisively ruled that it violated the APA per 19. The Texas degree the text of the EPA for the project opportunity which violated the APA and unambiguous review agencies hence corrected that agency cannot opt out of transparency without this time the APA can change the section. For political expediency, there's also no democracy internal link. The 1DC best evidence is a hyperbolic call to action by environmental defense fund. 1DC Lynn is titled Trump's War on Regulatory Science, but Biden administration solves. 1DC Lynn, 18 science people is vulnerable and democracy is dead and the whole world knows it. Viola, 21 Alex delivered to their own word accusing 1 million of democracy. Those who are looking back in insurrection proved difficult realities long star personalized 3. In 10 Americans lived in bodies presidency of legit gift to Putin. And then G, the Republican Party challenges constitutional institutions undermines public faith in nature and the Republican actual faithful European nation leads wonder whether parties and friends who want to cut foreign policy Afghanistan and defense with great in fact the image to Canada make it hard to change the rule of law. Americans who say violent action against government just by breach 34%. But 1DC twinning evidence also doesn't say distinction, it just says democracy improves trade refugees and nebulous complex, but they have not read that scenario or trivial impacts to any of those. Democracy solves nothing directly. 19. And this study searched database 3,000 articles which analyze democracy and ways not having democracy. There's worse than before comparative, no consensus literature scholars can against minority leadership benefits or not. Lead studies have no correlated studies down on correlation between. Or that data, there are more powerful explanations. That this is kind of explanations. Backstead does not list the impact, which was processed, no AI impact shimmer. 17 years time for contingencies and safeguards now rules, just a common sense that when you use space heaters, progress is slow, there will be incremental implementation, which means that every stage statement probably can control robot that is behaving custodian. Then server protection, we would reprogram it all scenarios to on long sequence of internally if we see if AI requires understanding that there will not be super if not we can super users and will fail the racism problem. COVID disproves the disease impact, it does not cause extinction in Halstead. 19 pathogens are like the constitution 200,000 years without exterminating is evidence at the rate. This level outbreaks did not come close even to boom for the economy disease to the extinction of minority only converge cases of malady extinction around the 50% silent genetics and coding increasing increasing exposure to low virtual strains against medicine and sanitation limit. The damage.
Okay, you good.
Let me mark that part real quick. More powerful explanations. I'm good with it.
Okay, are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, the non-inherent card that Serena cut, she thinks it's about the F. It does not talk about politicization, it's about notice and comment. Why do you think that's about the F?
Well, the part that matters for the advantage is that it said that the EPA's action and rulemaking violated the APA.
Okay, the APA is not like one single thing. They're like notice and comment, whether it's arbitrary or capricious. The AFA said that this rule violates the arbitrary and capricious standard. This rule was a separate rule about notice and comment. Why do you think it takes up the advantage?
I have two responses. The first is that ruling against like an EPA rule on the APA has implications for like the precedent surrounding it. And secondly, let me finish. So secondly is that the opportunity to comment still increases transparency in agencies' decision making, which like solves some portion of the internal link to like democracy and what agencies can do.
Okay, that's just incorrect. But okay, status of the off.
Conditional.
Can you kick planks?
So we can kick planks.
Yeah.
We cannot kick planks.
Okay, did you read all the way down to the democracy thing?
Which democracy?
The Dorn split card. Did you read everything about that?
Yeah, I read Dorsley. That's the one that's marked with more powerful explanations.
And you just didn't read the bottom 3 cards.
No, I read everything. I just marked the Dorsley card.
Okay. The advantage counterplan, I guess, how does it solve for the disease stuff? I'm confused.
Yeah, so it does like a couple of different things. It like increases contact tracing for new diseases that emerge, as well as like increases information sharing and risk preparedness between like agencies that are responsible.
I guess the one AC's made a thesis claim that pharma companies aren't investing. I guess if that's true, what is?
So the distinction is like pharma companies can innovate drugs that like prevent diseases from emerging or like cure them, but the app stops them from emerging in the first place.
Well, we've also made a claim that there's no investment in preparedness of getting ready for those diseases.
Well, that's what the counterplan does.
Okay, wait, is the counterplan is it the Fed investing in its own measures? Does the Fed give money to companies?
Well, the actor of the plan is federal.
What is the counterplan fiat? Does the fiat company, does the company invest in the preparedness, or does the Fed give them money?
So the counterplan is not fiat, but like companies cooperate. But what it does do is it like gets all of the relevant agencies together and like provides all the branch and
Is the company federal R&D?
Federal R&D, it could involve like.
Yes or no? Is the company federal R&D?
Let me look at
Like, does that investment in things like whatever, like those tactics or whatever, is it?
What's the question?
Is it the Fed investing? Is it
The
the Fed
fund
investing?
does not say R&D, but like domestic preparedness, testing, contact tracing are outcomes of research and development.
Okay, I guess the state counterplan, how does it resolve in between states?
What does that mean?
Like, I guess, like, is it all 50 states doing the same WOTUS rule, or does each state
All
have
50 states return to the 2015 rule.
Okay. Will you claim this solves for the second advantage?
Yeah, because the second part of the counterplan says they use science when promulgating guides.
Okay, 10 minutes. Serena, one other question. Are you going to field the alternative?
The what?
Are you going to field the alternative?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. What one is good? There isn't one. Do you think the other people are just terrible at research?
I don't know, maybe. I haven't done any opposing research, so.
Okay. We stopped at 8:38. And it's done.
It'll be the water advantage, APA advantage, D, the K, the advantage counterplan, the states counterplan, the BISCON dissent, then the court dissent. 4, 5, 6. Okay, we good? State wetlands is the best strategy. You can see that the wetlands are the highest carbon density for soil, water, and vegetation, which makes it sufficient to evidence. So, yes, Indian China do not thumb first the signal. Indian China cannot reduce it down because use is not. Second, use alone is key as for evidence. 3, they can see the global modeling, which means that Indian China follow one and also correct the wetlands. 3, they signal the coming extinction. This is wrong. When the process is not an event, can't think ability to cause make adaptation impossible. Answer for disease, disasters, and nuclear war. That's written crib with prevent adaptation, which their assumes is key to solve the AP advantage to try or die for scientific rulemaking. First, on like tech, as such as geoengineering, AI, and biotech become uncontrollable and cause extinction. That's a Bexit and the series evidence and future uses cause extinction because they're more lethal, viral, and contagious. That's a diamond evidence and democratic decline causes global war, terrorism, mass migration. And after question, that's funny evidence. First, the non-inherent card is wrong, so inducing comment about arbitrary conditions, which is necessary distinction. Secondly, it's about one judge on the SCOTUS ruling, which is necessary for precedent. They say no democracy, and this is wrong. The democracy is collapsing now because of lack of effective rulemaking, which the plan solved. They say Biden solves. This follows Conley 7-7 EPA alleging organ science continuing under Biden alteration or effects of Trump there continue emphasize the problem is persisting and inside EPA side integrity is becoming an oxymoron, plus the next administration is going to reverse Biden's rules, which means we still solve an impact. We're actually dead. This part says we're actually dying, not dead, which is because for our office, which means the plan is necessary to solve and prevent backsliding in the EU. This is 1C20 does not say extinction. It still says mass migration and global conflict, which is still bad. They actually solve. I think this is wrong. They conceded the warrants in the 20 damage and the damage part said they reversed the cost of conflict because the Democrats just won't want to go to war because of public backlash and it's the correlation five the strongest lung cancer. They say no, yeah, this is wrong. This assumes regulation or that's a possible absent scientific rulemaking. They say COVID disproves this is wrong just because one disease didn't kill everybody. The next one, well, the last part is also answered by the indicates that there's diseases in the human gut that are just not being released.
Exactly. The Biden song, they also said Trump funds and
Trump does not cement the plan solves by forcing scientific rulemaking. Seepage. We meet plan the vacuum is only objective standard. We meet the plan uses harmful uses of wetlands, counter increasing protection, means increasing permitting and not prevention. Killing 2020 under the CWA protection does not mean prevention. That means permitting because under the plan impact or what must get first get approval. That notice has a recent impact for our performance precision. There is about killing whales. It's used not even sign and it's quantitative, not denotative. That arbitrary statistical post for the app. We get sort of their for reference and there's a limited impact. There are infinite uses of water, which means they don't solve good. Stuff is spread out. If all of them matter, functional limits check or counterprediction only office topical solves your impact. Okay. First, if I'm determine this activity plan or purpose is a competitive alternative for first impact is fairness, today we see one to utilize infinite self-serving calculations that have no basis in the resolution that's used for first topic education. This is a piece of points class comparing opportunity class, creates class and argument prime, which is a pure make it frame a portable outside debate. The reason you both the one the all results resilience the app or it fails, plan is less capitalist, it imposes restrictions on the free market, and it all fails, takes decades, improve the denied loses to F-16s and only market based and loses to F-16s. The theory you can only fiat 1 million actors. Display is their interpretation slivers with the object fiat. Makes all debating impossible. Justifies all everybody nice to each other and give this sustainable. Harvard at 20 GP this correlated with access to food, shelter, health, education, fair, freedom, and condition. As long as energy and labor and children and constantly developers use less which is a public as continued with goods and waste begin to fall items from so productive trying to make sure the function 100% with about coming already 58% demonstrations save the planet and growth ensures planetary defense, tech development, otherwise extinction, Huawei 15 commonalities between planet defense and money. However, hovering or ordering land, lending, anchoring, and or essential distinct technologies are use the mine materials to be where you put device inflections, so the changes or the planet defense national mining, circular common attributes, advances, and one to advance the other mining. Just the benefits with the defense they path forward. We'll see mining spearheaded by the private sector, considering nature asteroid good focus to give that beneficial survival of our species. There's not time for a global transition to the all fails, walking, polar crew in 20. To go there and approach on work with effective paths of Green New Deal, cost development is a progressive activist, I thought Green New Deal investments in economic dominance, issues have to be addressed now. There's one fundamental problem time skills and the capitalism how possible this is one time that we'll have, which requires adjustment mobilization averting and environmental disaster and defending capitalism should proceed in parallel and overthrow and the private ownership. People think this could happen in less than 30 years. We're certain that private ownership would be desirable for social standpoint. Most energy assets are publicly owned. Could be certain nutrition public ownership delivers us your vision by 2050 and cap self world peace. It's on 19 water minutes where the orders of the plans 45 the orders. We love the to piece of the losers market track like foremost interest in such a region for all states as the foundation of global marketplace wars not possible to with we control market markets they were two was expansion minor powers by market market oriented powers market powers that kind of plan. Permutation do any combination of any of the plans it solves the issues and that benefit because the advantage kind of plan is so big it would swamp any news of the plan links to Bitcoin because it's still regulation. The first plan cannot solve warming. Convert 11 seats findings proposed the 10 bubbles can be easily injected into water not so fast. The reverse can be evaluated parts of the ocean or reflective movement of heat ocean with regional climate would be affected. Just think about how regional climate has been influenced by the water of anemic water also holds more CO2 more acidification. The geoengineering stuff does not solve AI or nanotech, so it does not solve the majority of the disease stuff. R&D fails, Campbell 18, R&D mid first productivity, R&D higher and have an effect on growth time frames or long effects. R&D begin after 20 years and take another 20 does not solve the incentive to innovate, which requires profit, which is only meant for certainty. Not the from happening except for running in status quo and Moser. The one AC says algorithms plus extinction. 721 deoxygenation occurs increases in algae dissolved oxygen become available to animals. As the partial food chains and humans depend on each other. We need first grade to survive. Make life livable. We need interact software deoxygenation distribution energy from places where it's survival. In places that it's not animals can't function. There is we fail to build systems that make earth capital and aquatic biodiversity loss. Risk extinction. Covers 19 the U.S. Center for Biodiversity. It's sustaining biodiversity central or survival. Aquatic organism breakdown. Toxins, nutrients, aquatic wildlife are sources of food. Oxygen buffers against past food sources and climate change. Food supply draws on just swap crops making food vulnerable uses. Climate, what is our ratio could result in insurance stability food we need to protect our biodecon is winning issue time trust for the 2AC accurate as a kind of plans, favorite generics or cases of research. This was solves their offense, the same kind of plan. Permutation do both the two linked to the court decide because there be no controversy because states in the two subpoint does not self-avenge. One is this word states do not have their own modus, they have order to the state, which means that plain does not the company does nothing. It is not self-avenge. Two, because states demands are toothless, you must require a federal precedent by SCOTUS and permutation do the counterplan. 57 has voting issue time or obvious literature based uniformity references lies in empirical basis, which makes more education not uniformity solves our offense. Viscon decide Viscon is low now. Here's a chart. CIC 21 confidence shop 2.6% in January. Growth and U.S. ag exports were positive during the 2015 rule. Went to our two charts on USDA and the New York Times. USDA economic resource source in 19 and New York Times in 20, which is not there. I'll send that out later. New Purex on the thumb the decide national law review 3 or 4. Repeat leasing policies to follow through each of her these actions progressive inspections. You probably expend a money capacity community and monitoring increase monitoring oversight including facilities by the rule is will be comparatively worse for confidence will be comparatively worse for confidence compared to the plan APF 27. The EPS made comments the new rule the proposed rules on the tobacco survey and complicated regulations and the rules about police potentially unlimited jurisdiction. Thought person has the A could disprove they make impact on if they plan distinction, then we get new answers. The last is that. Permutation do both the counterplan and the plan. Permutation do the plan and the United States federal government should refuse from Dobbs v. Jackson to Women Health Organization. It's not intrinsic because it uses the actor of the plan to the action of the counterplan without adding anything else. The counterplan links to this that by bare recusing yourself makes the court seem immune to politics, which allows Roberts to go conservative and if getting one justice. It takes a non-action is voted. It's artificially inflates bad decides and distorts literature. No comparative evidence for counterplan versus plan reject the team for deterrence and the impact is that access to abortion is key. The interlinks about preventing a decline, which means they don't solve it. Roberts were got road now. The minute and 12-1. Likely she and Roberts will Mississippi prevent us not the Constitution require by bending the course of ruling without a doesn't state to put more severe restrictions. The NWR put Pierre shut down the thumbs the court repealed Trump's rule with more expansive liberal motives and recent Roberts rulings thumb to decide King 11-3. Roberts acknowledged to address climate. Roberts sees no reason to revisit recent Roberts and my mission of late law crisis sided with is the Republicans in 5 court cases. Row 1 effective abortion access Davis and largest 1021 the rules that surpass the use of the abortion countries with the laws of figure restrictive. Abortion is freely available in practice. Mark Davis at practice.
Okay, are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, so national law review card from a couple of days ago lists a couple of things the UK are going to do. Where do those say that those hurt confidence in business?
It's the links about regulations as per the one in C. We've said regulations are coming down.
Right. So your evidence says like inspections and stuff. Why is that like as much of a decline in confidence as something that
it says new random aggressive inspections that are met with heavy penalties if the company's not compliant.
Okay.
That was clear businesses.
The like argument about how the plan like ceases harmful uses of wetlands.
Yeah.
How do you determine what like a harmful or non?
So it would require a permit.
But
So it would cease the use of unpermitted access to wetlands.
if people have a permit, can they pollute wetlands?
If they have a permit, but the app would
Wait, so why is the app not like anti-topical?
the app would cease the use of unpermitted wetland use. Or
But if you have a permit, you can pollute, right?
yeah, but that there'd be like less people who can pollute.
Wait,
More
so
people are polluting
why
now.
is the plan not like?
Not everybody gets a permit.
Okay, how do they determine who gets a permit?
It's under the Clean Water Act. Anything that would like harmfully destroy the wetland, that was a permit.
Okay, so you can't harm wetlands?
No.
Okay, sure. What is wetlands the like biggest difference between the rule of the app and Biden's rule, or is like what is the
This
decision?
is wetlands and ephemeral streams, basically.
Okay, sure. The APA advantage, like Biden doesn't solve politicization. Why?
The Ev says that he's not listening to science. He's continuing many of Trump's agency rules in rulemaking.
What's like an example of that?
The card says that like some scientist was like hiding like something. They're like hiding like files.
It's about chemical reports, like PFAS stuff. They're like Biden's EPA, Biden's agency is hiding like reports on chemical pollution. That's what that talks about.
Okay, sure. Okay, so then the impact is that like over long periods of time as the United States promotes democracy, we ought not be like political because we have to like showcase that the democratic model works. What about like the changes between presidential administrations? Like doesn't thumb down. Like if we keep oscillating between like Trump's anti-science, Biden is like less but still is. What is the
whole point is that that couldn't happen after.
Right, so my question
every bill
is-
would have to
my-
be based in science.
My question is like, the impact is like, okay, we promote democracy in the long run. Why does like stopping politicization of like a rule solve that, like, of like US promoting democracy, showing that our model works, like. what-
RF says that backsliding in like, the EU is traced back to US's failure to govern effectively and scientifically.
Okay, and, okay, sure.
Sorry. Reasons are adopted to.
Conditionality, the 50 state fiat.
Okay.
And fiating one justice.
Song Habit 623. Okay, it's set. The order is the advantage counterplay, the calc, the safe counterplay, and then advantage 1 and advantage 2.
Sorry, what was third?
Third, the state's counterplay, I think.
sorry, can you just do the whole thing again?
Yeah, it's the advantage counterplan, the CAPK, the states counterplan.
I'm looking at some.
And then
Yeah, I get
how much do I have? 620, oh, it's on the timer. Okay, start off for a second. Okay, stop that. 6:15.
No, that's gonna stretch.
It is Albertson.
What's it? Okay, good.
Okay, Albertson. The application punished Washburn already a single scenario that is intrinsic to their advantage. First, it covers 4.8% of the ocean, establishes a code of conduct for geoengineering, which fixes where we could achieve that's a Morgan evidence. It also solves the geoengineering scenario. Obviously, second, it increases academic and military aid to global democracies. There's no deficits because we're reading their 20 evidence back at them. Third, it advancements IP protection and market access and farm innovation. Again, this their what is the cloud evidence of the kid? What did I say? Four, it solves disease prevention outbreaks and rates across the COVID response by investing in smart cities, funding initiatives for fairness, including testing, contact tracing, isolation, and risk mitigation, and engages in multilateral forms such as the real evidence. They draw solvency through the plane machines. They don't access the terminal scenario. Use sufficient framing solvency as the sliding seal versus inevitable within martial deficit. You can just keep the counter when it's logic essential counter. You should have over a world versus the status quo. The first negative, part two, any combination of the planks links to that benefit. It does no plans regulations. You should not give them utility warrants because the only one in the TUC wasn't good. There's news happens all the time, machines, but there's no reason why this uniquely solves for the app being interpreted. But there's no reason why people can't know about the planks of the counterplan that they do the plan that is substantiated by evidence. Now, the next argument they say that it links to that benefit. It does not link to risk on. The only thing that can even potentially be construed as regulation of the counterplan favors big pharma because it provides investor certainty for them, but it doesn't solve the disadvantage broadly because our links and impacts are about broad confidence across sectors, not just the pharma sector. Now, the geoengineering plan does solve the counter evidence is wrong. One is a random reporter running in 2011. You should obviously prefer scientific consensus after the Morgan evidence. Second, the science works and old evidence cannot assume it into advances. Three, A10, UN climate report presents advances and a major leap in predicting geoengineering models and supercomputers rapidly sophisticated predicting variations proposed in Winter's and Hemisphere project, rain and snowfall of methods in serious clouds can offset the science as they are fully offsets running Morgan, 11 injecting microbubbles of air to see what are big, universe clouds such as to back to space and commit to deep light power. We have a delivery system piece that has to see 1300 overrates under type platforms. The only need very small bubbles just not a lake. Global warming is fully offset 7.2 parts per million of what bubbles. Code of product obviously solves the two engineering impacts will random. The rest of the impacts are not terminal in their evidence. The IP deficits are non-starter. The counterplan is an R&D and it's their interlink author. So they don't get any feedback. It just increases market access. And the Congo evidence is that shores uncertainty, which answers the next deficit. Now, the add-ons. There's no terminal impacts of biodiversity loss, which applies to old enhanced 18 was passing by the greater exist survive like to adapt to thousands as you to through everything contrasting and shows resilience to make space sensors supported by diversity with the earth with glass or evidence to both the planets and class of the gas equal class now damage is gradual not sudden ecosystems later given never feel if cities would experience then shed glass global actors mean that they cannot solve the biodiversity or deserts created 21 for the world diversity ecosystem crossing Australia Israel South Africa India Spain Belgium Pakistan and Nigeria flags places of research indicators that to crossing Europe alone then reveals government feels to be the single ecosystem losses in the last decade. 1 in 7 had intact ecosystem covering 30% of locations 20 South Africa and Australia most at risk. They're going to say that modeling solves it. It obviously doesn't because they're not modeling in the status quo. No death zones impacts animal process for it at all. 15 it is tempting to assume all algal blooms are causing humans connection between anthropogenic eutrophication is uncertain nutrient limitations rather than excess number by large scale forcing and alcohol sectors some driven the large scale forcing not being clearly associated with one another. There's no impact to acidification to climate. 15 carbon dioxide is also causing there's no likelihood of pH getting low. 1.2 units is smaller than the difference between times a day. Acidification will stimulate productivity. Fertilization may reverse acidification. Photosynthesis rate protect organisms that impact productivity. Studies suggest that they will outweigh lower pH. The evidence is marked at lower pH. The geoengineering plan solves for all of these because the reasons for things like algae blooms and geoxidization of our ocean is because of excessive pollution and carbon being emitted to the atmosphere. The geoengineering steps up conditionalities that we did versus offense 1 is that glyphosate is naturally protected by atomic speed of the app. Only rigorous testing common seeds are done less in liquid situation. Second is in propulsing. Conduct versus 2C decision making multifaceted defensive efficiency and advocacy skills and critical thinking. Third is testing context to testing out for multiple inputs, reduces nuance education skills, real world. Four is ideological flex. It's the only way to read and account in the same round. I forgot the CBC's interpretation, so they shall answer it in the next speech. The CAPK not going for a per source tested competition. I'm going to concede that all theories and research and the argument of the team because the punishment should fit the crime, possibly that until the state's counterplan. The Maso evidence is equally applicable to both of our scenarios. We cannot be defense to us, but if anything, it is impact evidence to the disadvantage. We will extend the state's counterplan project as combination, not going for the theory versus protective argument. Now, the water advantage. Well, that's not solve the scope of warming or the other impacts on the advantage counterplan. Their carbon storage is tiny compared to overall threats and inevitable sea level rise guarantees that they drown. As for the Christmas evidence, these words were not answered in the 2EC. They just said that they have a high carbon density, but that doesn't matter if they're going to be drowned in the future. Sea level kills wetlands first. Peterson 21. Rising sea level privatization percent and actual wetlands. Sea level rises rapidly, so directly out for survival darkness further when voices contribute coastal development population of 100-year coastal floodplain goes up by 2060. If there is any doubt in wetlands' ability to sequester carbon, obviously China and India found, which is the next argument. China consumes half the world's coal, and India emissions are projected to rise 14% in the next few years, which the hot evidence obviously overwhelms the stuff that wetlands can do in order to avert ancestral warming. They say that the signal is necessary. The signal is not necessary. The 1C evidence says that they think that they have different commitments in developed countries, which means that they're not willing to hold on. And the evidence that they're citing does not reference either China or India. Modeling is fake for them. Children in Woman 21 U.S. pledge to exit by shaking Europe. Years of denial buttons. The plan to proclamation contributed China versus to diplomatic pressure to reduce output. So did India, Russia, and Australia. That raises liquid tax 62 degrees. Indian leadership says so not to. 21 environment of emphasis that India will not raise carbon emission under pressure from developed countries. India's going to develop yet grow. The next, they say that the USSP, they have no evidence to substantiate that the USSP and answer the wetlands were above. They say the climate change is accidental. No, it's not. There offers land speculation about unpredictable field limits rather than scientific consensus, which is secure evidence. The follow-on effects are wrong. Part at all. 17, likely warming of the cause extinction risk center low probability of steam levels is possible to say with incompetence, but warming will become severe mass still humanity is able to adapt to avoid extinction in extreme scenarios. The second advantage, the democracy scenario is entirely constructed. First is the one I see pasta evidence internally is hyperbole. It's a call to action by an environmental lawyer, which is not answered by the 2EC. Second is the pollutant sensation internally is also wrong. The Lynn evidence is about Trump's EPA, which means either A, Biden's administration insults it, or B, Trump's out, quote, lasting damage that the affirmative cannot overcome, which is a direct line from their evidence. This is bolstered by the Conley evidence that they read in the 2EC. Bolsters the second half to the double point, obviously, because it says that there's a quote, war on science in the EPA, despite having a Democrat in office. Third is that the U.S.'s ability to model democratically is long gone. 3 out of 10 Americans think that the Biden administration is legit. A third of Americans think that violence against the government is justified, and European Asian leaders have been quoted saying that they've lost faith in our ability to influence them, which is a fatal evidence and deposed all of ours internally evidence. Fourth is that their evidence is not vaccination. They have to limit trade, refugees, and random conflicts escalate, which is not looking good for them. There's no impact to democracy. A consensus of thousands of studies is proven there's zero correlation with peace. Corruption is most likely in democracies, and democratization causes civil conflict to offset any benefit. After the jointly evidence, obviously still no impact to geoengineering stuff. The 1AC process is obviously partially by geo. The AI impact is wrong. That's the German evidence. One is a safeguard law. We have plenty of time to develop common sense checks that exist for all forms of technology. They say that we can't do that without science-based regulation. Obviously, if there's a pricing existential threat, then we will overcome the sort of polarization and politicization within agencies to solve that, which is proven by all of history. Second is time. Progress is slow unless we're feedback and halting harmful development, even if we don't have good scientific processes in the EPA. Third is internal links or evidence rather than wrong things strung together by thousands of if-then statements, even if the threat is really impacted really long-term. Check sugar 17 and AI would need emotion structure external comfort with the wording and enough time and criminal progress. Well, the AI will continue progress with dystopia, really decalculating dystopians, dystopia, the disease scenario. COVID obviously proves resilience. There's not a good answer to this in the 2EC. We adapted, which is all the adaptation words in our evidence. It doesn't cause extinction in 200,000 years. No outbreak has ever come close into effectively boost immunity and advancements in medicine and sanitation solved after the health evidence that impacted by a thing that says there's a 0.02%.
Okay. 8:38.
Wait, yeah.
Okay. 8:11. Okay, I did.
Yes.
Okay. How does the counterplan solve rogue AI movements?
We think that you have to run a terminal impact to that. It establishes a code of conduct over geoengineering woven defense fail.
Okay, how does counterplans solve the pharma stuff? I'm kind of confused.
Well, it solves the terminal impact. You ask for the verbal evidence because the terminal impact is just disease, right? But it also solves because your CACA evidence in the 1AC says that things like free market access allows for certainty for pharma to develop limited fate.
Okay, what do you mean by free market access?
I don't know, we're quoting lines in your evidence. It says that that should be a good initiative.
Is there a warrant for that?
It's your evidence, Zach. Like,
I don't know what that means though. Can you explain what the counterplan does?
I can read you the 1AC text again if that's what you want.
I want a warrant for solvency.
Okay, the evidence says that it allows us to have increased like economic activity in the pharma sector, et cetera, which is a CACA evidence. The line that says, well, the initiative that your evidence suggests is like exactly quoted in the counterplan.
Wait, I have a question, Serena. So you've cut this Cocker card to say commitment to promoting fair market access for inventions, including biopharmaceuticals, but you didn't cut around the world. This card is about other countries accessing American inventions. I guess
Dude, I don't understand why you think that this is an affirmative argument, considering your internal link evidence says that U.S. trading partners will need to do this in order to solve innovation in the U.S. So that's just a solvency hiccup to you. Sorry.
Okay, the AI defense stuff, what safeguards exist now?
AI defense? Well, our evidence says that since it takes so long to develop rogue AI, there will be safeguards developed in the future.
Okay, how long does it take?
What?
How long does it take?
I don't think we have to tell you how many years it takes to develop safeguards. But if there's a pressing threat, then they will be developed.
Okay. We're good. Stop the process.
Okay, I'm setting up the one.
Just type it, so.
This is round 3, right? Activities.
Okay, it's a quick FYI about dispositionality. Then the core politics dissat, and then this one.
So I don't have to look it up.
Okay, are both of you all good?
Yeah.
And both judges good. Okay. Dispositionality doesn't solve for offense. There's no 2AC definition, and matrix force offense T and dissat makes Q inevitable. We can see the permutation on the core politics dissat. Here's the reason reject the argument of the T dissat. Economic theory that waste its impact culture, solar growth, collapse, the rule based over the Greenland, Chinese and Russian aggression, unregulated geoengineering, geosynthetic biology, data tech, which is our rose evidence, economic decline, causes blue streak, cessation, May 14 decline, by the US of electrons, America's DOTs, rebels, season, by China's ready, science, versus the Japanese, trade, defending weapons, security, making governments, political, financial, practice, and close rule of little bit of the mortgage, rotator, sovereignty, the wicked American tax, 1 and C, Burroughs says slow growth causes international conflict, undermines regime stability, which catalyzes nuclear civil war, Calvert, May 20, Michigan, Blues, River, Wrath, events, and we China captured by the mobilization, made more attention, rebel, presentation of using civil war, causes regime imposed, draws in everyone, and causes blue streak stated, and it knows refugees have neighbors, no Korea, flexes muscle, and then rings regulate control due to weapons taken from Iraq, Morris, one young, his war disputes with Russia, Vietnam, the engineering due to the war disaster. On a worldwide scale, offshoring would turn the case, companies will turn abroad rather than comply with regulations. Becker, May 20, as US began regulation of the cost increase by diplomatic companies moving to developing countries will factors, cheap labor, and favorable flaws, regulatory schemes, correlated with industrial shift, and bolsters slowing down the Pfizer. 15 firms are allocated economic activity with low regulatory cost and reallocation, increasing emissions, leading to constant output profits in manufacturing industries. Now, it turns the case, one is warming, growth stalls. The 2AC is red piece of evidence on the cap data, which says that increased growth would offset emissions in the future. 2 is democracy. US economic growth promotes our model for more than polarized politics ever would, which is the Brooks evidence 3 is disease. The plan is much better for innovation. Economic downturn means that companies would cut their losses and shut down R&D of pharmaceuticals. And 4 is emerging tech. 1 is the impact evidence says that the US model prevents proliferation of emerging tech to autocracies. Our internal link is much, much bigger than the AF's agency regulation scenario. Now, AF evidence is way too old for uniqueness. US growth stagnated, but recovery is key to the internal link. Confidence is high now. 1 and C evidence is qualitative and predictive of the upcoming quarter. It's increasing now. First, the Biden boom is real. Op-ed report is exaggerated. Climate carefully. 1 3 and the 3 3
economy grew 5.7 years. Data shows small position on the low 30% compared to before the pandemic. 2020 had a black inflation measure from then. With Europe's price of stuff going to Russia will push prices in supply chain by the pandemic is never related to the bad ads. Now we're not seeing inflation. The bottom movements of workers. It could be missing. Should not grow you with fears any. Don't see the notice reports reporting gloomy attitudes between both of the goods are on both work. Actually seeing growth now. Hayes 3-4 numbers. Fantastic manufacturing prices. You see unemployment drop all positives. By geopolitical headwinds companies in the rearview mirror coverage robust economy came in. Making more routine effects taking people scared about inflation servicing with more supply of labor earnings is really for coverage robust and get the network inflation is operating. 2 is that their app warrants are wrong. Businesses increasing despite Ukraine operations again. 3-1 is regarding Ukraine while advertising events is limited and having commenting growth of all study major military adventures that these have limited kind of recession inflation issues for rate growth has to be close to loss valuation for the market pullback now. The link to it. New regulations are picked up by communities. Fear of compliance costs mean the businesses would rather shutter expansion than face the app. We could talk ourselves into a recession, which is the market evidence. The new regulations thumb argument first. Their evidence is not contextualized to business confidence. It is basically cut from the Federal Register. Second is that the specific link evidence outweighs which would be below 3 numbers magnified. The link regulations will multiply, bro. And then said the cumulative federal rates and most consequences of growth. The road new regulation will attract the existing margin and on the road. First people may not slow, but the millions might stop the flow despite little consequence of over the first item. Similarly, one can reach much lower prices in isolation. 4 Biden's regulations were announced before, and new regulations will be litigated. The plane would flip it because of what is bloom. The 21 months anticipate the app and counter onslaught of environmental regulation faces the question seems to doubling down the counter. What is immediately subject to loss of stakeholders are weighing hundreds of thousands of comments and losses will immediately keep these important policies untouched. Bring it all 21 Biden will face obvious environmental social and Dakota to finish up. Is a review of drilling now. You should frame the link debate through announced policy. Biden has made it clear that the regulated community he intends to go ahead with the rule, even if it's mathematically worse for businesses. It doesn't assume the reduced profits from the perceptual reaction. The plan is a rush rule, reverting back to Obama's rule, first regulatory clarity. Peterson, 21, the EPA announced on August 4th that Congress revised the definition of voters and rule the Biden replacement scale down the regulatory as a check agency that provided clarity to reduce the time agency to determine jurisdiction it would take. 2 years to complete giving notice and comment speed matters. Businesses will react faster than the government, even if they implement policy less all. And 21 things get all being heard when domestic comes back and then the economy floating passing the low consumer lines and today's sophisticated regulatory corporation engaged in before policy making. Implementation which takes months to get into an embedded lag. Setting is similar today to stock market recovery come back to overturning heavy. And the plaintiff's rule would create jurisdictional uncertainty in the future, which is something that Biden's rule does not. Lavender, May 20 business communities are regulatory uncertain slopes, farmers legal enforcement business for privacy, establishment as water connection and wetlands and other water sufficient federal jurisdiction guideline. Rules more certain than jurisdictional excluded waters and guideline allow building, mining, farming businesses to operate without delays and certain from agency rules. Now the Biden rule also will not be implemented, which takes out their often gridlock and conservative majorities will stop it McGill. 21 Biden's after 6 years of leave launch that oversight biggest changes conservative majority for his primary term federal authority political compromise modes as a possible definition into the cabinet culture rules America right will be upheld before Jacobs and King 21 Biden went to firewall of conservative justices also for on delegation doctrine convincing the upon the speech by the committee has been embedding in the corporate offer a restricted view on pollution cases created decades of legal writing with Congress is following no. The COVID dumps argument doesn't assume the internal link. The U.S. has to recover to show hegemony internationally. I'm going to read one more uniqueness card. Confidence is returning now, lane 3-4 Omicron. News receiving market is unlocked faster growth than employer demand exceed this supply likely to keep growth healthy even if it even as slow as maybe Ukraine breaks U.S. market. Health strong conversations about Ukraine sanctions all prices contain inflation jobs to keep reserve on track. Ukraine excess inflation ultimately report both confidence and resilience to continue growth despite headwinds.
Ayla. 456. Okay, that should be simple. It'll be the APA advantage, the water advantage, and then the advantage counterplan, and then the baseline. Is everyone good?
Wait, sorry,
Is there a dot?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't got it yet.
Yeah, I haven't got it either.
The FO is a magnitude feature during a frame everything because it is uncalculable. The impact it would do. First is AI. There are no safeguards because it would be unscientific and there would be lack of regulations of the roster evidence, which answers the first argument because you do not know what safeguards or what checks would be put in place. As in, no science existing in the world. Second is that it is not slow, but magnitude classy always banana. And then it can transform fast if they decide to think that humans are there anymore. They decide to consume everything which is disease. And the impact evidence because the Nanotech was also conceded, so it should buttress all of the offensive of the disease stuff. COVID does not. The honest answers and says that COVID you're lucky, but there are billions of diseases in the gut of the microbiome system inside of humans, and there are thousands that can still affect humans. So answers your thumbers. It does not prove burnout or anything else. And you should not do it risk disease on a whim. The other defensive arguments are all factually incorrect because there's no preparedness or an incentive or medicine that exists in the status quo because there's no investment. The water advantage, you can see the defense not going to go for the advantage counter plan. I will make this very clear. This does not solve for the disease advantage. Serena has cut a modeling card, as said, it's our internal link. The CACA card is about access for other countries to get U.S. medicine, but that is broadly irrelevant because the broad CACA card in the 1AC concludes that the U.S. will give access to other countries if they are able to innovate, but there's nothing for other countries to buy or have access to if there's a lack of market incentive, which was the 2AC argument segment. And at the end of the deficit, there's no investment in the status quo. The whole evidence makes it that the people are not investing in the farm industry at all, and it will absolutely tank it because the yo-yo regulations are cards at the market. And for your evidence, I said that is bad because we will not be open to things like ABR disease and biotears. The tax because there's a lack of investment in things like medicine, preparedness, and flu, which means no matter what they do, it will not matter. That it doesn't matter. Independently, they conceded that government spending is bad. It is much slower. It decreases the productivity of the region. That this, either the counterplan does not do shit, or it's government spending, which they've conceded is bad. It would stifle innovation. I hope they say, well, that's what already spending is interested in relating government spending. Leadership, your friendly under never be friendly only use government studies deeper than this already pure contract never positive different investment already do not government studies the investment in R&D government studies reduces duty and duty to already studying duty for investment in already instead of natural learning in the face of decline and relative earning government investment backfire. Okay. The last argument is that even if they invest in preparedness, if it is not in companies, then there's no tech, no medicine, or any technological capability for the government to do anything. So an agency is basically toothless, so it does not stop diseases. Turn to both results in individual content. One, skew answers their defense always because we see this key to half offense barrel. And then 16, we're kicking out a straight over his position in the table. And then we're convinced of African ability influence the strategy push off and on it. And then if you can the most ability of people time table. And they said education passing ideology, that's wrong girl. And they say Connor could say, but I'm not making out generic description of here to interaction people who's on it. We're going to take our reputation meter CT or education real world and skew turned it. And then Maryland 16, the remote TV. We're doing this jeopardizes human decision military a lot of more to the option resident to the London topical purpose. And we solved the context Maryland 16, the Connor just thinking there's longer and showing the losing with the next like weighing the likelihood of the response when we come up never take the strike and we get to win the defend. Their claims are often fancy outweighs, and this vote definitively solves it because it means that they still get the positions they want. They just have to be tactical choices because you do not need a vast wave of generics as long as you have in-depth research about the apps. You is not inevitable, it is linear, and you make it much worse. This one. One, COVID disproves the entirety of it because saying that unique evidence is too old proves that BizCon used to be low and was bad, which proves how circular this dissat is because BizCon will always recover, but it was low. It also disproves the impact because COVID was an economic recovery, which I'm pretty sure is an empiric that was conceded. It also disproves their loose nukes claims because tariffs would have taken advantage of it. The loose nukes add-on, nuclear does not cause extinction risk, and then it's in worst case scenario, don't nuclear loads not covered because what is found is not hide concerning air civilization lead over a deep sea production climate different, but I'm not making a sense in the reduce Congress and out of your mission, but representation of the first one, inclusion working combination of that the common effect of the air short, the BC isolated island soft version, native islands, what properties for the specific quantity others from the original, people spread an ice age from the global rate about the 50 degrees Celsius, mark the card at 50 degrees Celsius, no turns case because there's no uniqueness for it because no one is investing in disease anyways. Now go down to the uniqueness debate. It is low now. We've inserted a chart that said it dipped at the beginning of January and small business is at near time lows and then 3-1. The small business company really also where you can separate politics because political pressure about people remain underwater and struggle workplace shortage, rising inflation, concentration, a little bit of society, where purpose minimum wage hikes. All of those prove that current events prove instability in the market. So even if it is high, it is uncertain, so it does not matter. Go down to the link debate 2015 proves that it does not affect the economy because it did not absolutely tank it in independently. The LFS basically conceded the link to Biden's new rule is beating uncertainty and is complex for businesses, which will trigger the link, but the claim is comparatively better by clarifying what it is and is impermissible law. This is a safer evidence market. The 19 firms are frustrated with political polarization, uncertainty, budget, and regulation. The APE stalls Trevor and the comments when rulemaking were flexible standard guideline measure. Enforcement pretty late or deliver part notice or credit enforcement pretty low everything. If you do any more market participation, channel and reverse behavior, marketing channel offer making working, those faster prices versus number working can be more efficient.
The chopper comp.
But sorry, the one right. Okay. We have 6:15. Which card? Okay. Yeah, this card. Advantage counterplan. APA advantage.
There's two cards on the email chain, so we're going to remove them and then
Very good. Controls every water scenario. You should frame this with your time frame towards case business reaction to the outcomes as an immediate downward spiral in the economy, which is an exceeded westful evidence. It outweighs because it collapses the rule-based order, creates Russian and China's aggression, and it destroys the safeguards and emerging time. The reason we didn't feel anything with the advantage counterplan is because it's a status quo counterplan. It's a status quo counterplan is all nuclear emerging time scenario. That's the burst evidence. It causes loose nuclear weapons and civil war, which triggers extinction as per the one in our man covered and Davis evidence. And even to the overview, strong nuclear winter causes extinction per person. It all 22 reduction in industrial activity, but losing capacity to fight harvest living outside triggers loss of humans, aerosol messing, add to GHG, some other equals also rapid rise, global times, eruption cause winters through to sulfur emissions and oxygen suppress synthesis, and this can trigger solar predator events, enhance radiation, it's unable to retain habitability, and doing the rapid change sufficient cause extinction of Earth. The evidence is nuclear facilities sufficient to reduce the safe outcome, global to carbon sensitive climate, consequence of leak weight and by Celsius, islands feel with and most 21 islands to overrun by China or US and with pain of extinction islands, susceptible to eruption, group and devastating just because islands for Celsius does not mean prepared as a refuge. The evidence is marked as prepared as a refuge. The first defense argument in the overview that COVID is proves no, it doesn't. The effect is called zero that it did far enough in order to provoke a market reaction, which is the threshold for winning the lake, and the scope of the lake obviously just proves it. They conceded a ton of evidence to say so. I'll do that in a second. The uniqueness debate is obviously varied. It is obviously negative on this question. The only piece of evidence that they've had from this month or the past few weeks is the Rosenbaum evidence, which only speaks to small business confidence. That is not descriptive of all sectors of the economy, which is what our link evidence is. The McAfee evidence from the 1C says that the economy is growing at a rate of 5.7%, and business confidence is high in the status quo. The Hayes evidence says that manufacturing has doubled what it was before COVID, and says that it's on a positive trajectory. The TN evidence in the webinar says that uncertainty regarding Ukraine and other issues are not going to overwhelm the high rate of business confidence in the status quo. It says that 69% of businesses view the economy as opportunistic. All this proceeds and the Rosenbaum evidence, and just has far better warrants in the card, which is the only argument that they have here. I don't have to win the disease turns case stuff. They can see that the rule-based order regulates emerging tech, which is why we didn't extend the counterplan. Obviously, now the link debate is very decisively negative this question because they conceded a couple of key framing issues. John, I need your computer. First is you should frame it through announcement. The plan might be mathematically better for growth, but businesses perceive plan's predictability, which the plan distracts and kills any benefit to the plan. Second is that you don't have to read it. The will be from that would be tied up in court. There's 2 words for that. A is that the conservative court is uploading implementation. What is the new culture war? As for the legal evidence, B is the implementation is in a firewall of litigation. Will be decades of legal wrangling, which gives businesses confidence that the plan would disrupt it. They just conceded the only evidence that we've read on this question, and it proves it's very decisively negative because the question is just about timing. It's because of the process of fiat, the board code, the notice and comment section, and they conceded the Westfall evidence that even if it's more positive than Ryan's proposal, businesses won't have time to see how positive it is because they're just going to react negatively first, which is answers is like fuels winter. Okay, the advantage. Currently, both links to the benefit because it still does the affirmative. All I have to witness is the solvency. June ignores the plank that is dropped out of the 2EC. The verbal evidence is the best way to respond to access central disease. It's the things like smart city funding, preparedness, like testing, contract tracing, isolation, risk communication, and engaging with our international allies. They pretended that this part of the planks do not exist. You should not count any of their R&D stuff as an answer to this because it's not reliant on research and development. It overcomes any harm that R&D would cause for innovation because it's all the terminal impacts of pharma uncertainty. They have not run a deficit. The 2EC student does not get to make a 1-year deficit. Now, the next argument, the next argument, obviously the R&D stuff doesn't matter, so I'm just going to do condo. For me, it's just that a couple seconds of 1 year does not justify a 5-minute 2-year. Draw a line from 1 year to 2-year calculus because we cannot predict it. Anything else incentivizes a steady economy because of low risk, high reward, and causes substance counter that turns all of their offense of the cards we read. Our interpretations that we get, we did in the 1C, that is reasonable dispositionally is horrible versus especially counter the negative and fourth currency counterpoints of the 2C, which means any competitive benefit, i.e. reading place to stop nuclear war or small global burning, and the cannot impact target because it's a double turn of the ass. Second is arbitrariness there's zero committee consensus over what discipline comprises. There's not a definition in the 2C. It's a solvency figure to their interpretation because they've not defined it once in this debate. Third is that it solves no offense. The object takes negative strategy. They cannot solve flexibility, which is our offense. That outweighs the offense huge. There's a lack of generic statements. How a disputed conduct is unnecessary. Corrective rigorous testing lets the app to get back in the game and forces the app to defend all aspects of the 1AC rather than picking and choosing the next shot that they can be. It checks 2AC recruitization and structure while outside base. The other restricts the game. Fairness comes first because without its readers lose faith in the activity which turns the triple into all of their offense, and all can see that from the 2AC on the campaign. Now they say research one, we linked to it, rigorous testing forces 2 ways to be prepared to cut hard, straight, treated justice and counterplans, and thoroughly defend the offer from every angle. It's an exportable tool if you do not buy fairness and turns all their offense. Second is the ideological class and triple link turns it that we can read praise and counterplans to integrate the app with the app. 6 and 9 with both of them, and it's not a loss. Third, proof of fairness is prerequisite because there's the activity. They've just read all these parts that explain what condo is to a non-trader because they didn't want to read their blocks at a slower pace. These don't say anything, and they're answered by everything I just said.
I think it was like 443. Something like that. Okay, Serena, you marked the Boyd and Wilson card at refuge, prepared as a refuge.
Yeah.
Did you mark the top card?
No, I keep reading it, sorry.
What did you just say? Read McPherson? You didn't read McPherson?
All of McPherson.
Okay, I thought she said she did. I was really confused. Okay, that makes sense. I send out a doc.
The advantage, DP advantage, the counterplan to this side.
What color is this? We're yellow.
Okay, good. Okay. Drop case outweighs none. You decide to try or die for the afterthought of a rogue element of AI. Nanotech only we already good episodes or impacts Royce level at the potential of ending all humanity. Nanotech is completely isolated and can see the impact after the 2 hour with no defense at all, unprecedented risks, the threat of survival, and that's effective evidence. And this surpasses humanity and intelligence with its pursuit of its fundamental goal, which would be its teaching would be the default for AI and Nanotech. That's serious evidence, which means it was both brought down for the 2 hours. Which the certainly because of the extinction level impact function outweighs first impact is math. There's a categorical difference between our impact and theirs. If they're right about, but you vote affirmative, then people will be bad and kill a few million people, but humanity would still rerun. But if we're right and you vote negative, then all humanity dies. Then it's the end of the species too. And secondly, it's try or die because there's no need to decide if you know everybody's dying now because of rogue AI. Then just not care about the economy because it's not only voting negative, it's just something that just on the Titanic. It's not solve human life because it's never voting negative does not solve AI. It does not solve any of their offense because it's all inevitable. And whatever is said from AI, the counterplan condition you both solve any residual offense, but they never claim to solve your AI or Linux itself, which means we solve an isolated impact that outweighs this stuff. They said, go there now. First, the terms case stuff is wrong. One year was new to an R. The terms of the AI stuff predicted on face. Secondly, RA scenario or AI scenario from YC indicts their terms case stuff. The global order cannot effectively regulate emerging tech like AI and nanotech because it is not using the APA. The whole point of the government is not doing enough now because they're trying to integrate in science. This is that has not changed sort of economic growth because the APA is still invalidated because we've not struck down the NWPR because the app is a lone key to solve our offense and economic growth is absolutely nothing. The squad, their evidence not certificates. It's sort of vague and generic because there might be some improvements in AI, but not that sufficient to the level of the affirmative that it can actually integrate science and effective science. That's not the we're looking. Third, it's just proven by the status quo. The fact that there's been economic growth is all the regs there's growth now, but what regs on AI haven't adopted? None haven't, which means the only affirmative and the report from the status quo can solve our offense because it's not being solved now. The one you see back to the internet indicates that there's no regulations now, which means that this is heavily on the affirmative side and voting into the status quo is not a safe option. The no nuke war is not constitution. First, this is new to an art. There's on face, but for specifically the one you see back evidence and the one you see is that nuke war is not constitution. This is not a new in the one ER because from the one you see the net just dropped it. They did not get a pick back in the 2 hours because they did lazy debating. Third is climate solutions. This is the one ER evidence that indicates that even in the worst case scenarios, that 7% of the smoke will be rained out within a month. Of course, there's massive scientific consensus that the nuclear will not kill all humanity. The threshold is that even if 10 people survive or 100 people survive on some random island, it's still sufficient for you to vote for them because there's no scenario where people bounce back after AI does the entire globe. And I'll read highlighting the evidence not even about nuclear war. Tober proves we survive about meltdowns, which no one has read and impact you, and probably assumes every nuke being launched. This is 200% on 22 and digital reduction, losing aerosol making up eruption, towards lower eruption, small production, close international planets, specifically enhancing radiation and control, method of nuclear facilities. Their second card is also it's about islands taking refugees, but argument it was that islands would survive and lots of clouds and hypotheticals that admirers or the events are far off. Only other warrant is volcanoes, but that'll be answered next. Gold, North 21 other nations, recently overrun by major countries such as China or the United States, rare to act as refuge and okay, it's fine. Next, this set is wholly non-unique. We have from January. This is that Bitcoin declined 3.6%, one of the lowest all time in the history because of inflation, wage pressures, Russia, and Omicron. Their only argument is that their post states is this misses the boat completely because if Bitcoin declined within the past, it just reached impact. It was at all-time low. We did not see last out, not see total economic collapse or nuclear war or loose nukes, which means that you can assume that you're probably safe voting for it because even if a decline of business confidence would not be the end of the economy as were conceded by the 2 hours. They've not wrapped the war and actually have a massive link to that. Just simply don't have an answer to. The first is that Biden's rule is much worse than the plan. They conceded that the Biden judgment is a comment we have from the American Farmers Association or something that said that the Biden rule is unclear, vague, and angry businesses and pisses off businesses because they don't know what is protected and what is not. This crushes business confidence. So when actually gets implemented, which means that the status quo is a far bigger trigger than the affirmative. The affirmative is much better because it's comparatively more clear and less ambiguous about what the actual rule is. Because it clarifies that well, the ephemeral streams will always be protected, which means that even if there's some modest backlash against the plan, there'll be even more backlash against the status quo, which means that there's no link differential enough to completely just collapse business confidence to the threshold that the Serena needs to win to win the DeSantis. Secondly, they conceded that the DeSantis entirely thumped. In 2015, we did the same plan. All the plan does is revert back to the 2015 rule. If growth was good during 2015, there's no reason why it'd be much worse after the plan. Because even if businesses think it's new or shocking, it's still something they've already dealt with because they dealt with it 7 years ago. Why would they lash out now across the entire economy when it wasn't that bad? It wasn't that bad then. Their last argument is about some time inflation. This is not true because Biden just finished it was in common, which means that they're expecting regulations because he just finished his thing. He's going to implement his new proposal.
Anyway.
Anyway.